What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about some of the unspoken rules of the UK. So today I want to take a look at this Reddit discussion where somebody asked, what are the unspoken social rules in the UK that foreigners should be aware of? So, as an American, I just thought this could be really interesting to see what some of these unspoken rules of British society are. These customs, these things that are expected behaviors when in the UK that I guarantee many of us Americans have no idea about. So, the first one here is the British take queuing seriously. Always wait your turn in line, and cutting is considered rude. Well, that's funny. That's funny to me. Ha ha ha! Because here in America, cutting is considered rude, and yet people still do it. It's really frustrating, and this is something that has come up in quite a few videos that I've done, actually, that in the UK, you really respect the queuing. And this is something I respect about the UK because it's a lost art form. Our civilization is just trending downhill here because people in America are terrible at queuing, or what we call waiting in line. It's kind of crazy sometimes. Now, don't get me wrong. In many situations, people will wait in line or queue. But don't be surprised at all if you get, multiple different people cutting in line, acting like they don't know what a queue is, standing next to you, and then when you turn to them, and you're like, "This is the line." They're like, "Oh, yeah, this a line? What? Oh!" Like they've never heard of it. It's very strange behavior. It gets me a little worked up. So let's let's keep going here. What are some more unspoken rules of the UK? Standing in the middle of the escalator during rush hour. So I assume you're not supposed to do this. The unspoken rule. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because these really are unspoken rules. These, I don't know where we're supposed to learn this stuff. I guess from maybe your parents or just, growing up in a civilization and you learn how to queue. No, sorry. Still thinking about that, and Americans. But as far as standing in the middle of the escalator during rush hour, escalators. This is an interesting one because I don't have to take an escalator during rush hour, but if it's really busy, I can still, empathize with the idea of you shouldn't stand in the middle of an escalator no matter what. I think this is the same in America, but I will also say the caveat that once again, we have the same rule. You're supposed to queue. You're supposed to not stand in the middle of the escalator, yet Americans don't abide by the rules. It's like Americans, I think in general, have just a little bit of a lack of respect for each other compared to the UK. Seriously, they should do a study on this. Because I would guarantee that it'd be true that on average, Americans, we're kind of we're taught to look out for ourselves. We're not so concerned with other people, which I think has led to a lot of stereotypes about Americans being rude, loud because we don't care as much how we're affecting others, getting in the way on an escalator because we don't care how we're affecting others. So this is really actually very important information for Americans who visit the UK. Like, honestly, seriously. What's this? I had to shout at a group of Spanish tourists because they were blocking the escalators as I was trying to get to work. Yeah, and I don't know what it's like in other countries around the world. I can only speak for Americans, and I don't know. It's funny. It's funny. I'll say it like this: in America, you get a lot of people who are violating the queue, standing in the way of the escalator, just standing in your way in general. But the funny thing is, these Americans are not trying to necessarily offend you. They might not even realize what they're doing. They might not even realize what they're doing is wrong. And when you talk to them, sometimes Americans are like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me." You know, maybe not that nice, but like they'll at least listen and be like, "Oh, am I in your way?" Okay. So it's not that Americans are trying to be mean. It's more that they're unwittingly, unknowingly being rude. Because they're just not concerned with the rest of the world or other people, not empathizing. I'll put it like that. I think that's a big difference between people in the UK and Americans. Yeah, yeah. What's some more unspoken rules of the UK? Directness can be considered rude. Not all the time, but most of the time. Oh, directness. You know, I just got off a tangent saying Americans are more rude. So Americans are probably more direct than people in the UK, I would imagine. Because I have heard that people in the UK are more polite, more empathetic, and don't really want to be confrontational. So, in general, Americans are more willing to be direct and confrontational and or start arguments or criticize. I would agree with that, but it's still considered rude here. It's hard to explain. It doesn't even make sense. It's still considered rude here. It's just that people do it anyway. I've never really thought about it. Yeah. Never forget to say please, thank you, and sorry. No. I mean, you'll hear this a fair amount in the United States. It's certainly not to this level of never forget to say please, thank you, sorry. A lot of Americans will use other words like sure. Like if you say excuse me, they might say sure. Like yeah. Like rather than oh excuse me or like instead of I don't know. We have these roundabout ways of saying things without really saying it politely. It's kind of strange as well. Huh. So the UK, from what I'm reading here, the UK, it just sounds like in general, you just want to be more polite, more empathetic. Don't be rude. Say please and thank you. I mean, honestly, things we are taught as children in America, but gets lost. It gets lost as time goes on and you live your American life. So in this sense, I would say the UK, as far as social customs are concerned, sounds a bit more pleasant. Like, honestly, the people and like the sense of community and respect sounds better. I'll say that much. Many things are not to be interpreted literally. On the general indirectness of communication. This is what gets to non Brits the most, even after decades living here. Yeah, this is confusing. Many things are not to be interpreted literally. I think in America we're pretty literal. We like to joke around, but we don't have the same level of this British sarcasm, this British banter and humor, where, or maybe just this British indirectness because you're trying to be polite, where you're not saying exactly what you mean? Is that fair to say? I could see a lot of Americans getting thrown off by interpreting Brits literally and never knowing if there's a problem or what the real message is, or I don't know, this kind of vague concept, but yeah, are Brits not to be interpreted literally because you're indirect? Because you're being polite? Is that what it is? Or because you're being sarcastic? Or you can interpret this a couple different ways. Huh, you're not trying to be rude. So maybe you're being indirect in that sense? Yeah, I would definitely say, given all that, Americans are much more direct. And it's funny, sort of. But if you weren't laughing, you'd be crying because I think in America, we just get used to a certain level of rudeness and abrasiveness. You just get used to it and it becomes normal. And then it doesn't even come across as rude after a while. Except cutting the queue. That's always rude. But in America, I think we kind of grow up and build up this extra layer of skin because you are dealing with a lot of very literal, harsh, direct, rude people. No, I mean, sometimes I feel like I sound like I'm taking it a little too far. It's not like Americans are mean, crazy, mean people all the time. But I think compared to Britain, yeah, there is a certain level of rudeness that we just accept as normal here, which would take some adapting. If Americans are visiting or living in the UK, that would definitely take some adaptation. Yeah, yeah. You stand to the side of the doors and you wait for people to get off the train before you board. Failure to comply with this system will result in glares or perhaps a tut like a like I can't even do it. What's a tut? But a glare. Ugh. I wish we did that. I wish we shamed each other more here. But oh yeah, Americans. Well, I mean this just goes with everything we've been saying. Americans aren't so aware of where they're standing for one thing. So yes, a lot of the times, man, in school, in high school, I remember a lot of American teenagers would be walking down the hall and take up the entire hallway. If there were like five kids, they'd stand shoulder to shoulder and just take up the whole hallway, which is rude. Or this happens in high school and when you're walking around a city or a building sometimes. Americans will just stop. Like you'll be walking behind somebody in a hallway and they will just stop because they got something going on. They got to stop and think, do something on their phone, talk to somebody, but they stop and you almost crash into them and they're just standing in the middle of the hallway, blocking a lot of it and just totally unaware of what just forcing their life in front of you. And it's really annoying and it's just inconsiderate. But again, sort of normal, which kind of would explain this, where kind of related to this, Americans don't always stand to the side of doors because I think we lack a general like awareness or care of where we are and how we're affecting others. That's really what a lot of this discussion has shown me. That British people are just what we should strive to be much more like British people in this sense of respecting others. Like just on a basic level. Just like make sure you're not affecting other people negatively. Um I don't know. It's funny to kind of think about, actually. We queue and take our turn. Jumping the line is rude. No one cares how busy you are. Yes, yes. And again, that's the same here. It's just that a lot of Americans are more, I don't know, willing to break these norms. Americans are a little more bold in that they'll try stuff like jumping the queue. Don't don't acknowledge the groups of feral teens on bikes. They operate in a pack mentality, and it's honestly best to just avoid them. Feral teens on bikes? Like where? Like how often? Is this something you gotta worry about? Like in the UK? Feral animalistic teens on bikes, operating in packs. Just avoid them, okay? Okay, what are some more unspoken rules of the UK? We aren't polite, we're passive aggressive. Being blunt is considered rude. We are the passive aggressiveness instead of being mean. As in the UK, you say something that sounds nice, but is actually aggressive. Very British. Very, very British. Okay. See you later doesn't literally mean I will see you later. It's just a way of saying goodbye. I think this is the same in the United States. See you later means goodbye. I think that's exactly the same. I've come across a surprising number of foreigners who don't understand this. Ah, well, that must be people from other countries, because I think America and the UK are the same in that use of that phrase. If someone bumps into you on the street, you say sorry, even if you're stationary with no way to see them or avoid them. In fact, especially then, you say sorry. this, this, I think, spells out perfectly the difference between like unspoken rules of society and customs in the UK versus the US. Right here. If someone bumps into you on the street, if this is being genuine, I can't believe that you're supposed to apologize to them. In America, you get mad at them. You might even say, "What the heck is going on? What are you doing?" Or you probably just go, "Whoa," something like that. And then they should apologize to you. If it's a smaller town or community, people are generally more friendly and they will apologize. Sometimes people will just say nothing and awkwardly keep going. And especially in bigger cities in America, people are even less likely to say sorry about any inconvenience they've done to you. But in the UK, even if it's not your fault, you say sorry? Really? Well, I think sorry just means something different in the UK. Seriously, I think sorry means something closer to excuse me or, oh, don't worry about it. Whereas in America, people are really reluctant to say sorry because sorry means sorry. It means admitting you did something wrong, which Americans don't like to do. When asked, "You okay?" the only answer is, "Yep, you." You okay? This is a big one that most Americans don't know. That in Britain, what do you say? "You okay? You all right?" And that's just a way of saying, "Hello, how are you?" Right? That would throw off a lot of Americans, because "you okay" in America means, is something wrong? It's like saying, are you okay? Like, and it's such a strange way to phrase it here. It's really saying, is something wrong? Because you don't look okay. It's funny how opposite that is, honestly. It's opposite. If someone says, "How are you?" don't tell them how you are. Just say, "Fine, thanks." It's similar in America, sort of. If someone says, "How you doing?" you just say, "Good." You don't go on about your life story. So I think that's kind of similar in that sense. And anyway, I think that's a good place to stop. This was really interesting, actually. There's a lot of different expectations and customs in the UK compared to America, especially in terms of rudeness and politeness and managing that, and how blunt or direct or indirect you talk. Those are some interesting unspoken rules for sure. It's something you just learn living your life in wherever you grow up. So this has actually been quite interesting insight for me into the UK. Anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment, perhaps with your thoughts on some unspoken rules in the UK, or if you agree or disagree with some of the stuff I read in this discussion. That'd be interesting to hear about, especially if you're from the UK. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to the UK and learning about UK culture, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.